Janita Pascal, your inspirational mindset shifter, and the founder and managing director of G.P.A Inc., where we inspire intellectual innovation. Today, I'm happy that you can join us here as my guest, Ryan, who is a leadership coach, take you behind the win, where we go beyond his cover story. Behind the win are experiences and or challenges that we all encounter. Those dreams and visions that we set out to achieve can be greeted by many stumbling blocks, which often leave us questioning why. Or often, they allow us to go back to the drawing board to determine where should we turn next and how should we take those next steps. But truly, nobody knows, as all they ever get to see is that cover story. That cover story that leaves others questioning, why can't I get there too? Here, we speak to doctors, authors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, your everyday people, and many more as they join us to inspire you, sharing as it relates to the experiences and or challenges they encountered before basking in their winning season. Again, guys, I want to thank you so much for joining us here as my guest today joins us to share on the topic moving from living in weaknesses to living in strengths. Hi, Ryan, and welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
That's an interesting topic, but we'll get into it. When we start, we also like to start on the lighter side. So, if I were going along my merry way and happened to get stuck in an elevator with you, and we had the opportunity to introduce ourselves, who would you tell me Ryan is, and what is he best known for?
Yeah, I am best known as a husband to my wife Bethany and a dad to my two incredible twin boys, Xander and Lucas. And then for work, I have the best job of helping people know and love their strengths and help them win in life and in leadership.
Nice. I like that you went right into, well, we're talking about leadership, but we're also talking about moving from living in your weaknesses to living in strengths. And when you first shared with me, you spoke about being fixed. And
Hmm.
many individuals along their journeys can be conditioned from as far back as their childhood. And when one is conditioned or fixed, that can often tend to allow them to make particular decisions based on the perceptions of others, the perception others have of them, what others deem fit for them. What was
Hmm.
that experience like for you?
Yeah, it's great that you mention it can even go back to when you're a kid. We see that quite a bit where, um, I have other coaching partners that deal more specifically with this, where, parents feel like their kid needs to be a certain way, when really, um, they're just not great at, what their parent wanting to do. For an example, I had a friend I was talking to, and he was telling me that he really wanted his son to be involved in sports and track, but his son really actually just liked like theater and choir and was really doing it well and was excited about that. And I just said, what if he's just not wired for athletics? What if he just doesn't like it? And it was funny. He was like, maybe that's true. And what was neat was starting to see my friend actually transition and affirm that his son was actually just more creative than he was athletic. And his son and him actually started to have a better relationship. And so, fast forward to my experience, I started seeing that same type of approach in my work settings. When I had leadership roles, my bosses or my leaders would try to fix me, um, in regards to like, hey, this is something we see wrong with you, not with can we tweak your performance and help you do a little bit better, but this is actually stuff that's wrong with you. And I started to internalize it because I started to hear it a lot often that maybe that there's something wrong with me. um, and the fortunate thing is that there's nothing wrong with me. I just was doing things different than they wanted.
Yeah.
um, and so when I left that particular leadership role, I was really discouraged. um, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Obviously I'm doing everything wrong. Um, and I came across strengths coaching, and I had a great strengths coach who we went through the Gallup Clifton Strengths Assessment, where it showed me my greatest areas of talent and how I could turn them into strengths. And I realized that, wow, um, these are me. This is my strength.
Yeah.
And then what I'd also identified as who I am not in that coaching time. And I realized that I was getting hired for who I was, but then they wanted me to be who I was not.
Yeah.
And that was the tension point of where they wanted me to be who I wasn't and was trying to fix me instead of actually affirming of who I am, um, and then and how I could actually grow in my strength.
Yeah. I really like that you went there because for a lot of us who enter the work environment, sometimes you know who you are, you know your
Hmm.
worth, you know what value you can add to the organization. But based on the perception of others and how maybe they see you, maybe it's a weakness that they have within themselves, and it's manifested in a way that they are seeing you that way, and sometimes they pick on you for different things,
Hmm.
and especially it can reflect in your performance management review, and that can have an impact on not only your experience within the work environment, but again, as you mentioned, on yourself and the mindset that you adopt, especially as it relates to yourself.
Hmm.
And we know that being fixed or being conditioned again can impact and shape our mindset and those beliefs that we have about ourselves. It can allow us to, again, sometimes it's not even a weakness and you're highlighting it as a weakness within yourself. So, what are some common weaknesses worth mentioning that can emerge from such an experience, or something that you may deem a weakness? And particularly, it's not even a weakness that someone else might be highlighting.
Yeah. Well, let's define weakness real quick.
Yeah,
I like defining it as something that gets in my way of success.
yeah,
So, kind of in that little bit that I was sharing in those circumstances, weakness is being who I am not,
yeah.
um, being who I'm not in a role. That's going to get in your way of success or getting the win. Where when really, if we're comfortable and confident in who we are, um, we can show up best in those workplace settings, and even areas of life. Just being confident of who we are, and so. But let's say we have a strength. Like one of my favorite strengths is I'm a really strategic thinker. But now, how that can get in my way of success is if I run people over with it, or I don't include others in my strengths. Or then on the flip side is I don't use it at all. So those are two different kind of extremes of your strength actually being a quote unquote weakness because it's getting in your way of success. And that's the important thing of like coaching and just being aware of your strengths and how you're growing and using your strengths.
That's so true. And sometimes, due to our experiences, we tend to magnify our weaknesses
Hmm.
more than we highlight our strengths and our unique qualities that make us rare and distinct. So, how can one sometimes it's not an ego thing, you don't want to boast about yourself and the abilities, so
Hmm.
how can we tailor that to so that we internally recognize our strengths and we also share those qualities about ourselves with individuals?
Yeah, that's a really great question. At least for me, just being able to come up with a simple way of saying, "Hey, um, this is the way that this is the way I approach this leadership position or this circumstance," um, and just being calm, being able to have a conversation about it. I remember one time I was working with another coach. He had flown me in to help do a team event with him. Speaking of that strategic talent, um, and he said, "Well, Ryan, so if this happens, what do I do?" Oh, and I was like, "Oh, yeah. If that comes up, you just can do. these couple different things, just really whatever fits the moment. You just go with the flow. And he said, Ryan, I don't do that. I'm not wired that way. And I was like, oh man, yeah, like totally. I am, but you might not be. And it's being able to have that conversation of, hey, what are my strengths? What are your strengths? How can we accomplish this goal together? So just being able to invite people in and then being willing to go with people and their strengths too.
Nice. And as we do that and as we make that shift at some point in our journey, again, we don't know where to start and how to start. So, and I like that your topic was a little different from the topics that we receive on a normal. What does it mean to live in your weakness as opposed to living in your strengths?
Yeah. So living in your weakness, if you almost kind of had that like consistent brain fog and you had just no energy, there's no motivation, you're just kind of going through the motions. Now, don't get me wrong. I think there's sometimes where there's seasons where it's okay to go through the motions. Like my wife and I finished school. I had finished my 4-year doctorate. Um, went
Congrats.
into thank you. Then we went into finding out we were pregnant with twins. Then we had twins, and one of the babies was in the hospital for a long time. And then we had to figure out how to be parents to twins. And then now, even just a few months ago, we were like, I feel like we can breathe again. And so some of that was okay, just been going through the motions. But when it's just that constant of like, you're not growing, you're not contributing to anything, you're not looking forward to anything. Now there could be some other things going on, but that could just be a first sign of maybe you're living in your weaknesses. And then on the flip side, especially at, like how I feel, I think everybody's probably a little bit different in this. But when I'm living in my strengths, man, I'm excited. Like I am willing to collaborate with others, and I'm willing to bring other people into my life, and I'm willing to be part of other people's lives. And then there's kind of an upward tick, even if it's just a little bit every day. For me, that's living in strengths.
And what would you say are practical steps that one can take to make that transition from being fixed or living in their weaknesses to perhaps live now in their strengths?
Yeah, the first thing you could probably start to do is sit down and reflect on where are you getting your energy. Because when you're living in your strengths, you just do your strengths so naturally. Like that example that I shared of when I just didn't, it took a second for my fellow coach to say, I don't do that. Well, it's because my strengths are so naturally to me. So think about where your energy is. What are the things you do extremely well, and what gets you excited? And then and then start doing that. Even if it's just a little bit every day, those would be the first steps to identifying what your strengths are. And then it's the flip on identifying your weaknesses. What are you doing that just drives you, that just drains you of all your energy you're not excited about? But then, like I said earlier, are you using it to run people over? Like, are you really actually turning people away from you, or are you not using it at all? So those would be some other things to consider.
Nice. And I hope that we take those factors into consideration and we really do the work. And I like that you spoke about reflection. And
Hmm.
sometimes we have to make it our business to stop and just reflect and self examine to see how we are growing, how we are transforming, and look at those areas that needs perhaps more work.
Hmm.
So, can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing? Who do you serve? And on what platforms we can find you?
Yeah, so I am a certified strengths coach with Gallup. I also have a PhD in industrial and organizational psychology. So I like to use a strengths approach with leaders in their workplace, and I also work with their teams to help accomplish goals, um, improve performance, anything kind of like that. But overall, if I can help someone love their job more, that's awesome because I know I've been in jobs where I didn't like because I was being fixed and I didn't need to be. I just needed to grow in my strengths. So those are kind of the target market. But I also say, if even if you're not a leader in a leadership role, everybody is a leader of some sort. But if you're in the workplace, you're thinking about how can I get to the next level, those are kind of the great clients that I like to work for. I am on LinkedIn under my name, but also my business name, XL Coaching and Development. And then you can also connect with, or my website is xlcoaching.net, the letters X and L, think like extra large, coaching.net.
Nice. And I know that, we're all taking time off our busy schedules to be here and share with and inspire the audience. But just before you leave us, I was wondering, are there any last words that you would like to share for that employee who is showing up within the organization, perhaps giving their best, and, you know, the individuals within the organization can't seem to see them, and that is impacting, again, you're giving your best, but that is impacting
Mm-hmm.
the way you see yourself, and again, how you continue to show up and whether you continue to give your best.
Yeah, man, great. It was such a great time to be here. Just thinking about the behind the win. So if I had any final words to someone that an employee that is maybe struggling or just kind of going through the motions, just keep showing up, being yourself. Look at ways for you to grow. Um, Look at maybe hiring a coach you connect with. Um, See if your employer has resources for that too. But know that you are seen and you are valued.
Right. And you spoke about whether your employer would have resources for that. I mean, we have Ryan right before us. You don't have to wait on your employer if you
Yeah.
believe that there is a challenge or there is an experience that you don't have the tools to address in your life. You can reach
Hmm.
out to Ryan. His information is down below, and you can see how best the two of you can create that relationship so that he can continue to work with you. And I'm just so happy that you came on here today to share with us, because a number of people continue to write me on this very topic
Mm.
that they are experiencing within the work environment. So I know that they would be listening, they would be watching, and I just hope that whatever you shared here today would be able to help them to integrate best strategies as they move forward within the work environment.
Yes, me too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today.